listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
What's going on? Welcome along to my show Straight to Video, and I hope you're all doing good. We have on today's show a total legend. A guy who, along with his band, are a great British, or probably more accurately, a worldwide rock and roll institution. None other than Ginger Wildheart is my guest today on the Straight to Video podcast. Now, I'm not going to try and sum up everything Ginger has done or is known for. For a lot of you listeners, I will be preaching to the converted, and for the rest of you, simply do an online search for this guy and his band, grab several drinks and snacks, and just dive into some rock and roll royalty, which has been around since the very late 80s, but burst onto the worldwide scene in 1993 with their Earth vs. the Wildhearts album. How the Wildhearts are still together to this day, or even alive for that matter, is an unsolved mystery after everything they've done and been through, but in 2021 they are still, if not more so, more vital and loud as they ever were. If you're a fan of Ginger, then after this chat, if it's possible, you may love him even more, as he was well on form, and we dived into a talk which was equal parts about his love of horror movies and also about his early adventures into the world of rock and roll. I learned some stuff, and I hope you guys will too, but most of all, I had an absolute blast chatting with this guy. Ginger and the Wildhearts are currently in the middle of recording their brand new album, and they also have an online live streamed event planned for the 17th of April. Tickets for this and all other information can be found at thewildhearts.com, and you can also find Ginger always active on Twitter, simply at Ginger Wildheart. This really is a good one and probably one of my favourite chats so far, so please have fun listening to my straight to video talk with the one and only Ginger Wildheart.
How are you doing?
I'm alright, mate. How's things?
Good, really good. Well, considering I'm really well. Keep myself busy. I think that's the most important thing.
It looks nice and country cozy there.
Well, my little pad, my little haunted pad.
Haunted? Come on.
I haven't believed in ghosts since I recorded in a place called Tutbury Castle in the Midlands, and it was supposedly the most haunted castle in Europe, which is why I chose it to do some recording. And we did it with the Wildhearts on the White album, and I did it with Mutation. Both times, fuck all. I even stayed in the most haunted room of the most haunted castle in the whole of Europe. Nothing, not a thing. So my belief in ghosts was destroyed then, and I can kind of, every noise and every little discrepancy can all be explained away, apart from in here. You know, the usual kind of putting things down and forgetting about them. I'm very, very old. So, you know, that's an age thing. But I've got these big brasses, these huge big brasses. I love them ever since being a kid. And one of them's got Time and Wear on. And it came off the bookshelf and it landed by the front door, which is about 20 foot away. And there was absolutely no reason that it could possibly do that. So it's kind of spiked my belief a little bit.
It's back. Have you ever played at Bannerman's in Edinburgh with Christian Kimmer?
Yeah, a few times.
That's supposed to be haunted upstairs in the rooms.
Obviously, it's subjective to who it lets see it, because I was there with quite a few people, and No one had any stories to tell.
I think one of the rooms like totally blacks out as soon as you close all the doors and stuff like that. It's like, holy shit, I've got to sleep in here all night. It's nuts.
And did you?
We slept in one of the separate ones. I don't think anyone dares sleep in the apparently haunted one.
Oh, let me come with you next time.
So have you been able to catch up on many cool horror films during the lockdown? Have you been like desperately watching anything? All the shit?
Yep. Yeah, well, I've been busy writing the Wildhearts album, but there's still a lot of hours in the day with folk all to do. So I'm watching anything. I've got a big list, always a listomaniac, and I've always got a big list of horror movies. I've fucking done the list now. So now I'm hunting around on Amazon and Netflix just for any old shit to watch. And sometimes you dig up a bit of gold. Most of the time there's a reason why no one's talking about that movie.
Yeah. Did you see, I don't know if it's your kind of thing or not, did you see Scare Me, the one with just the two writers in the cabin telling each other stories?
No.
Oh, okay.
Good.
I think it's amazing, and it's one which you can watch again, but it totally splits people. There's no gore or anything like that in it. It's just a very big dialogue film. They call it an anthology film, which doesn't leave the campfire. Normally, anthology films start at a campfire, then it goes into a totally separate story like Creepshow.
You young people don't know about anthologies.
I know about anthologies. I'm not that young, mate.
Really?
I'm from like the Cat's Eye, Creepshow, Twilight Zone era.
Well, Creepshow was a brilliant homage to the old, was it Tygon? One of those old 70s movie things that aren't around anymore. Amicus was another one. It was a big thing in about 1975, 76. They used to do anthologies, but just get every single well-known horror face in these movies. And you watch them, and they say you can watch them again and again. It's like Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, that kind of stuff. Brilliant. And Peter Cushing's always in them. Watching Peter Cushing, it's a bit like, I can't remember actors being that good. Like Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, it doesn't matter if they've got a script or not. Just them two looking at the cameras enough, isn't it?
Do you remember the film Ghost Story?
Yeah, the one with John Carradine, John Houseman was in it. And I can't remember Douglas Fairbanks Jr., wasn't it?
That's the first one I remember from years ago.
I can't even remember my friends' names or birthdays or anything, but ask me anything about 70s horror and I'll know who the cameraman is and who wrote it.
So what came first for you, your love of music or horror films?
Oh, fucking hell, good one. I've never even thought about that. Probably about the same time. I think being a little kid, being like 9 or 10, around about 73, I think for me, 73 was where it all changed. And I liked music. I liked Slade and I liked Sweet, and they kind of made me realise what I want to do. Like, there's my job. I'm going to do that. But I've been watching horror films since I was about 4 or 5. And on a Friday night, they used to have like a thing called Appointment with Fear, where there was 2 horror films on.
What channel was that on?
It was BBC 2. I started about 10 o'clock, and even as a little kid, I was allowed to stay up and watch both movies. And there'd be a Hammer movie and then something foreign, like a Peter Nashi movie or Count Yorga or something like that. And my favourite, Tombs of the Blind Dead, was on one week, a Spanish movie, and I never would have seen it. And it is really one of the most, I don't know how it plays out now, but it was one of the most shocking movies I'd ever seen, just because these undead Templars, just bones of them, and riding horses that were all bones.
What?
Yeah, brilliant it was. Obviously I was going through like kind of my first pangs of puberty, so Hammer movies were great because there was all nude scenes.
I always say to people, when I was like a kid around like the early 80s, I used to go to my grandparents at the weekend. They used to let me watch horror films. It's when like Evil Dead and everything was coming out. They'd let me watch all that shit. But as soon as some boobs came on, close your eyes. It's the same in America. I don't know if you spent much time in America. When I first went over there, about late 80s probably, and I had a roaring trade swapping VHS bootlegs and getting the uncut ones. And there was always a load of movies that you just could not get. So when you go to America, everything's unrated. That's right, yeah.
Back when they had video shops, I'd walk out there with 20 movies, just going, I'll watch them until they get boring, then I'll fast forward and look for the gore. Even in unrated movies, the tits and the vagina would be pixelated out. I'm like, you just tortured that fella for an hour and a half. You can't see a tit. It's always been the same. American TV's the same as well.
Yeah.
They're watching a movie, I forget what it was, but there was a horse in a slaughterhouse being eviscerated and turned into meat. And I was like, fucking hell, that's hardcore. And then there was someone giving birth, and that was pixelated out.
And they have like these weird marathons of like all the slasher films during the day, but they like just cut out all like the really gory scenes in that. But it's just showing through the day. It's ever so weird. It's mad.
I know. It's probably to appease the kind of Bible bashers in the Bible Belt of America. That's where the votes all come from.
So I bet you can remember when your family got your first video player, right? I bet that was a big deal, wasn't it?
Yeah, I do. We were late. I used to go around to my friends' houses, and they all had the early VHS things, the ones where you had to stamp the thing down with your foot. It was like a workout putting a fucking movie in that. And we got one. We got a Betamax, and my friends were like, "Oh, Betamax is so much better than VHS." I didn't get it. Betamax was, especially for the movies I like, Betamax was soft, very soft, and it looked like it had a filter on it. And VHS was just wet, cold garage. Especially with horror movies, I liked how grainy and kind of shit it looked. I'm quite the same with mixing music. I like the fucked up things to feel fucked up, And I've worked with a lot of people who are like, it doesn't need to be that grainy. It doesn't need to be that harsh sounding.
I think you mentioned that about like really heavy stuff. Too much modern, really heavy stuff is just too much in the pocket, just too much computerized, and it's just no longer heavy anymore. I think I've heard you mention that before.
Yes, it's the equivalent to music as CGI blood is to horror films. And people don't mind CGI blood. Oh, Ginger, you've got to watch this movie. You'll love it. And I watch it and it's all CGI. I'm like, what about me makes you think that I like pretend horror? I want it to be fucking shocking.
Do you think that's something to just how your brain works now, it interprets what's on the screen? You know that that's not actually there with those people. I think it's got to be something to do with that.
I don't know. I've always, I hated heavy metal music all my life because of that. Punk was like a VHS recording. It was like grainy and a little bit shit, but that was the charm. Anyone who can, fashion a song together with two chords was a way. And then posh metal came along, like Iron Maiden and stuff. And I'm like, there's nothing aggressive at all about this stuff. I guess that's the whole thing. It's a bit like the Scream movies. There's nothing threatening there.
See, I did like the first Scream movie because that one was a good one. But after that, everything, it just became formula.
Wasn't it a 15?
I think the first one might have been at 18. I'm not sure. You got me thinking there.
There's something I do when I'm rifling through like Shudder or Arrow videos. And even if something looks good, if it's a 15, I can't watch it. Ridiculous, isn't it? I'm missing loads of good movies. But like a horror movie should be an 18 just because it's meant to be, spend all its energy fucking with your head.
I'll send you a list. But mind you, I recommended friggin' Psycho Gorman to you the other day and you said, fuck that.
That's how we know you're an 80s kid and I'm a 70s kid. Psycho Gorman. It's got like all his references are like to video games and the Goonies kind of thing. I'm like Texas Chainsaw, An Exorcist, and Friday the 13th, although Friday the 13th wasn't an 80s movie made in 1980, of course. That's still my favorite decade for music and movies. And so much happened from like 73 to 79 in music and in movies. It was amazing.
So where did you used to rent videos from? You didn't have a video van, did you?
A video van, what's his name? Video van. No. We used to have to walk to video shops when I was little. Walk. And there was no paths or anything. It was all mud. Sometimes swamp.
Shit.
There used to be loads of video shops when I was little. It was a pretty frustrating time, really, because everything was cut to fuck.
Did you realise that back then? Had you heard that all these films were cut?
Well, I was always a massive fan of horror books, horror encyclopedias and stuff like that. And then Fangoria came out, and that was just the Bible as far as I was concerned, because you got photos of things that happened like in the movie, not necessarily kept in the movie, but filmed for the movie. It was just a frustrating time where I would find out movies I was going to rent from the video shop, and I'd get back and all the pictures in Fangoria were missing, and they just chop things out from the beginning to the end of a scene. The music would stop and it would just go somewhere else. And now you can get all those movies on YouTube, fully uncut. When I used to do videos, when I used to trade videos, I got stopped by the police.
When was this actually? I've read about this before. Was it just like later on in the 80s, like you said earlier, or did you do it a while up before then?
Must have been, CJ was in the band.
Okay, so it was during Wildhearts.
Yeah. The very beginning when we were just broke. I was happy to do this trade just to see the movies. I didn't really want to make any money. And the police, someone got raided in Holland where all the uncut movies came from, was always Holland. And this guy just had all the numbers of all of his customers in a file. So the police just went all the way through. And they were the paedophile police.
Oh, shit.
Surely you must know the difference between a rubber monster full of, red food-coloured syrup or however they made the blood back then, to someone being punished, hurt, for the rest rest of their life. There's some of the movies they took were funny, but just like Weasels Rip My Flesh and They Don't Cut the Grass Anymore. It was stuff that was like just experimental stuff, direct to video, filmed on video, with just all the ideas were about how they're going to kill someone. And it would just go into some bizarre things, but it was really comical because it was so cheap. But amongst the movies was Soldier Blue. Do you remember Soldier Blue?
I know the name.
It was the first gory Western. It was in the 60s when things were changing over and there'd been, slight hints that things were getting a bit more violent, but the cameraman would still be a little sensitive. And it was the first time that they'd shown violence up close, uncut. And the story was how big a bunch of bastards the Americans were, American soldiers and stuff, American whatever they are. And the things they used to do were kind of like, chopping up little kids, and all of that was in this movie. When they cut all the bits out, it looked like the Americans were nice.
Oh shit, totally changed the kind of arc of the film.
So I says, look, before you put these on a big fire, can you just watch this movie just to get the original intention of what the film was supposed to be about? And they were going to take all my videos and all my movies if I didn't just comply. And I always thought that was the most fucked up thing. Because when I was a kid, there was someone called Mary Whitehouse, who was a campaigner to end all things that she deemed unwholesome. And so all of these, most of them really crap movies, but all of them went under her invective. And so there was that. Even in the cinemas, you couldn't get uncut movies. And when I was a kid, Exorcist was still banned. When it got unbanned, it was straight in W.H. Smith's. I'm like, that's a massive switch in priorities. But it was hard to get anything uncut. That's kind of where a lot of my songs came from, really. At the time, I was just pissed off and angry. Most angry kids don't have anything to be genuinely angry about. And I was angry about censorship. So that was my first, table bashing.
Was there a group of you into all the same stuff?
What they used to do, we used to go around to a guy's house with a VHS, really early days. And I would get to pick the movie. Of course, I was going on the bloody cover, and 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, they were shit. And that's why I'd had this reputation of having shit tasting movies and shit tasting music because I didn't like heavy metal. So I've always been like an outsider, but not like because no one would be my friend. It was just because I hated their movies and I hated their music. Funny old days.
It's weird because, it's almost considered cool now, but back during, I guess, the late 70s and the 80s when horror and, let's say, the video nasties were exploding as a youngster, you'd be seen as an outcast, particularly if you're into rock or punk music as well. So did you get backlash from other people outside this friendship group who took the piss out of your taste in films?
Well, yeah, because my taste in clothes was a bit weird as well. So even back then, I was kind of dressing different. It was before makeup came in the 80s, but I was dressing different. I'd either walk around with these huge moon boots on that I don't know where fuck I would have got them.
I got to say, where did you shop from?
I've no idea. Can't imagine that I bought them from a shop in South Sheilds because it was all just like Geordie jeans and desert boots. But yeah, I was always getting in trouble then. So I think I was universally despised.
Did you used to go into Newcastle quite regularly to hang out? Because it's only, what is it, like 3 or 4 miles from South Sheilds?
No, it's 9 miles. Many was the time that we spent all the money and had to walk back from Newcastle Mayfair 2 a.m. to South Sheilds. And it was light when you got home. So, 9 miles, what is that, like a 2-hour, 3-hour walk or something?
It's up there. So did you get to see many horror films in the cinema? Did you have a local cinema you went to?
God, yeah. Well, we had two big cinemas, the Odeon and the Gaumont. The Gaumont one would have more independent movies, but the Odeon had Rollerball and The Exorcist and, Zombie Flesh Eaters. And we always used to pick the bigger guy from the crowd, and he would get a ticket, go in and open the back doors, and we'd all stream in there. And once you got in, they couldn't tell which was you. But they could have done because we were all too young to be there. But it was, The Exorcist was I can't live another day without seeing The Exorcist. I'd seen so many pictures, and I was like, this movie just was already my favourite film before I fucking saw it.
Was that like Cues Around the Block time as well when that was?
No, because this wasn't in 73. There would have been when it was first released, but it was done, the Odeon would have like, a film club kind of thing, which showed just weird movies like 70s horror and things like that. So that's where we went. And every week, most of it was shit. But, every now and again, you'd get an Exorcist or a Rollerball or a Zombie Flesh Eaters and just be like, fucking thank God I'm me.
Did The Exorcist live up to, I know it's still one of your favourite films today, but how was it actually finally seeing it on the screen? Was it more than you hoped for, do you think?
I think it was a better experience than my first time that I had sex. Sex is a pretty big thing, isn't it, for anyone? And that was all right. She was sick and she filled my boots full of vomit. There was that. It was vomiting both experiences, really. But I remember The Exorcist and having a different kind of fear, having a kind of mortal, kind of almost dread of what was going to happen next. And then I had to walk home on my own. Everything was scary. Hedgerows were scary. The fucking cat over there is scary. Really did affect me. And I don't know. I was going to say I can't imagine a film having that much effect today. But the last movie that did that was Bone Tomahawk.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that. Yeah,
I tell all my friends, and God knows why they were still friends with me afterwards. But I tell all my friends, you've got to see Bone Tomahawk. I'm going to tell you nothing about it. And then before that was Martyrs.
Martyrs was like, holy shit, that one blew my mind when I saw that.
Yeah, and again, Exorcist, Bone Tomahawk, and Martyrs, all made by directors who didn't want to make a horror film. So the standard of the movie, the standard of the drama and the script and all the rest of it, and the expensive camera work just lulled you into this sense of like, oh, this is nice. So that when something did happen, especially in Martyrs, and you just get boom, the violence has started. 15 minutes later, they were done, and you were just like, I didn't see that one coming. And then obviously Martyrs, it's that ending that fucks people up, isn't it?
Yeah, great film, man, great film.
Did you see the American remake?
I haven't. No, I always tread carefully. It's always like, what's the point? But I can watch them. But I've not seen the Martyrs one.
It's about as pointless as the Rollerball remake. And I keep hearing they're going to do an Exorcist remake. I'm glad that it keeps getting talked about and then no one talks about it anymore. It's impossible.
You developed a crush on Linda Blair in Exorcist 2, right?
My first proper crush. Yeah, and then she went from being little Linda Blair to like hanging out with Glenn Hughes, and I was Bootsy Collins or someone, and Rick James, doing tons of coke. She was already my favourite before I started hearing the really good stories about her. But going back to remakes, Rob, you tell me which remakes were better than the originals in your opinion.
Okay, I don't know if any are better. That's a tough one. Remakes I enjoyed. Now, you'll probably cut the Zoom feed after this one. I thought the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake was really well done.
Oh, I don't think I've seen that.
Looking back on it now, it's probably a little bit too glossy, but I thought they did a really good job on that and added some nice little twists into the story.
Was there lots of gore?
Yes, it's pretty nasty. It's probably a lot more gore than the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where there's not really much gore.
There was none, That was when your imagination was left to fill in the blanks.
It's just weird. It's hot and sweaty and dirty and it's horrible.
You can smell it, can't you?
Yeah. And I did enjoy the Fright Night remake for some reason, although that does go a little bit CGI, which spoils it.
Best remake, better than the original, The Fly.
Well, you've mentioned that when they take the old black and white ones where it was just a decent story, but then they've got the technology to kind of properly do it justice. Like The Blob. The Blob was great. That remake was great.
Yeah, The Blob was good, actually. It is taking those 50s black and white movies that had something that could be expanded on with colour. The Thing.
Yes. The remake of the Thing was shit.
I never even bothered watching that.
They said it was a prequel, but it's just basically the same film with some horrible CGI.
Rollerball is one of my favourite movies, and I haven't even watched the Rollerball remake, knowing that it couldn't be anything like the first one.
Invaders from Mars, that's a good one.
Oh, yeah. Who's that? Who made that again?
Toby Hooper, I think.
Toby Hooper, yeah, it was a name.
Yeah.
That's one thing about the 80s, is that you know who the directors are. You even know who the makeup guys are. Savini was a rock star, wasn't he? You knew Tom Savini was doing the effects. You'd sit through anything.
Isn't that weird, though, with all the remake things? Like, nobody who loves the original film wants them to do the remake, so who are they aiming it at?
Don't know. Young people who missed the boat the first time, which a re-release would be better. I'm just waiting for shit bands to start re-recording classic albums like, Red Hot Chili Peppers do Dark Side of the Moon. You know what I mean? It would make sense, wouldn't it? In an age where there's no integrity in most of entertainment.
That's probably something which would catch on.
Yeah.
Famous bands re-envisioning famous albums by other famous bands. That might be a thing.
And the worst thing about it is it would sell.
That's exactly, like you said it, I was like, yeah, I could see that catching on. For sure.
There'll be all the old people who remember the original album going, oh, it's too loud. That'll be me.
Top of the Pops seems to have a lot to answer for kids who grew up in the 70s and 80s, as so many got hit with that kind of rock and roll lightning bolt. Yours was The Sweet, right, at 9 years old?
It was watching The Sweet. There was very little music around that your parents disliked because it was all quite nice. Even, Mark Bolan was kind of nice sounding. And then The Sweet came on. It was blockbuster. And it sounded like, it sounded different. I couldn't now in hindsight, I can realize why it was such a turn on, but it just sounded different. My parents hated it. So I was just like, okay, I like this now. I don't know what it is, but I like this. And then the camera zoomed in on the guy's guitar and he had a sticker of an inverted smiley and it had the word shit underneath. That was it. That was the first punk rock thing I'd ever seen. And I was just like, this is my job. It's me.
Is that on YouTube? That's got to be on there to see that little sticker.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's quite a famous guitar now. It was the first kind of, screw the grown-ups thing I'd ever seen, which I've still been trying to piss off grown-ups ever since. Usually it's the 4 grown-ups I'm in a band with.
You were already into music before that, though, because you picked up some, like, David Bowie and, like you say, T-Rex stuff prior to that, right? You brought some of their albums.
My first album was T-Rex, and it was awful. Don't know what it was, but it was an acoustic album. And I still hate acoustic music, and I still hate playing acoustic gigs. So, blame Mark Bolan for that. I was more into country because, you just have the radio on all the time, and there was always like some really good country going around with, and that's kind of where I got my idea for harmonies and the chorus being a big catchy thing. But yeah, it was just kind of like, didn't make me want to, it was just like a favorite cereal or something, didn't make you want to be a cook. And music was just music. It was just that something in the ether that was pleasant. Until I saw Sweet and it had all of the boxes ticked that I still use now. That was the first time I was 9. So that was the first time that I knew I was going to be a musician. There's no musical people in my family, absolutely none. And all 3 of my kids are really musical.
Yeah, that's mad. That's awesome. So was you talking about the Sweet the next day at school?
No one liked it. I mean, I'm from a place where no one really likes music, apart from what they hear on the radio, what they see on TV. There's not a lot of people, when I was growing up, with huge record collections and stuff like that, and their favourite record tend to be the best of whoever it was. So it was that kind of thing.
If you're growing up somewhere like that, how was it when you kind of started wanting to put a band together or joining a band?
Difficult. I remember I used to, obviously, in my place, South Sheilds, there was no one. Everyone had a proper job. So I'd go to Newcastle and I'd spend all my money, all my pocket money, going to Newcastle to meet people. And you turn up and it was back when people had to look a certain way to be in a band. Rock stars are still tall and skinny. And it was impossible. I'd be like, what planet do all these bands find everyone from? And it was literally, they just move away from home and go to London or move to America.
The role in the Choir Boys, was that through Spike moving to London and you knew Spike, or what was the whole link with that?
No, it was because I wanted to get in. There was a tour going round. It was Aerosmith, Guns N' Roses and Faster Pussycat. And I was like, I've got to get into that. Instantly sold out, obviously. And then Aerosmith pulled out. So they did the tour with Guns N' Roses. And it was just when Guns N' Roses getting everyone talking. So these places were full of people, never even heard them, but I had a feeling there was something going on. And the Choir Boys were added to the bill. And I'm like, I didn't know anyone. I could get me free tickets back then, do now. And I just wanted to get in the gig. So I was in Becky Bondage's band. And they took me to Butts and Spikes club in London, where I got talking to Spike. And I was just like, this band that you've got, you are a 5-piece, aren't you? Because they're both 5 pieces. Oh, no, we're a 4-piece. You've got to have an extra guitar player. The same as I did with Tracy Guns. I just talked me into the job.
Blagged it like, it's a requirement that you've got to have the same amount of people on stage as the other bands.
Absolutely, that was important. The standard of musicianship, fuck that. So eventually I got into the gig for free because I joined the band that were opening up.
What do you remember about that gig? Did you get to watch the other bands?
Yeah, well, they were so small. I mean, Guns N' Roses were still not a big band. They played like the Marquee, not places, like big places. I think it was at City Hall or something, and Hammersmith. And so you were backstage, everyone was milling around. There was no people that wanted their own dressing room and stuff like that. Everyone was just hanging out. And you were like, are you Guns N' Roses or are you Faster Pussycat? Which one are you?
Yeah, because back then they kind of looked kind of similar.
Very similar. I remember talking to Slash, who was really lovely and always is. And I remember Steve Adler talking to these girls on the stage with one drumstick, yapping away and doing these weird fills with just 2 feet and a drumstick. Like the fastest thing I'd ever heard. And he's talking to these girls at the same time. I was like, I like this lot. They were great. They wasn't as, they weren't headliners. They weren't Hammersmith Odeon headliners. And the sound wasn't great and stuff like that. But, it was a springboard for the Choir Boys.
Just to rewind a little bit, what was the band Zigzag? Because you've mentioned that they were a really good band.
When I was a kid, I loved The Damned and I loved New York Dolls. And so I thought Zigzag will be like a cross between The Damned and New York Dolls. But like I said, in South Sheilds, they there was no finished articles as far as putting. I used to get bands, I used to go shopping with them and mess their hair up and say, oh, use that guitar, that's a better looking guitar. And I kind of visually orchestrated it all. But Zigzag was full of people that didn't want to wear those clothes, didn't want to wear that, I've got to go to work in the morning. And it was just me cobbled together, just people that could play. And then and I'd be like, oh, it'll be fine. I'll put some makeup on you and you look great. And they didn't. But it was just, I had to be in a band. It was at that point where this was really important. Obviously more important to me than anyone else. But Zigzag was my first band that I kind of wrote all the songs for. And we got a bit of a name for ourselves, mostly because of people hating us. I used to spend a lot of my money, all my money really, on pyro.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and you get pyro people with like 3 fingers missing and stuff. And be like, yeah, that's my man.
What kind of venues was you doing the pyro in?
Workermen's clubs. And workermen's clubs, there's no dance floor. The tables go right up to the stage.
Like Phoenix Nights, and you're there with pyro.
Yeah, exactly like Phoenix Nights. And there was one brilliant bit, I've got to tell you this story, where we had this novice pyro guy. He's just a friend of ours, I think, who went and got the pyro because he had a car. And we had some pyro for the start and some pyro for the end, obviously. And so the stuff that was for the end, he put beer mats over those pots. So you had, 4 pots to go off at the beginning, and then he'd remove the beer mats, and the other 4 pots would go off at the end. Didn't work like that, obviously, because beer mats aren't going to stop an explosion from going off. So the 4 bombs went off, setting off the second 4 bombs. These things were massive as well. And I remember everyone just got a huge shock. And then I remember looking at the beginning, there's all these fucking old blokes all covered in beer because all the beer had spilled all over them. The old deers with fucking black bits on their face. Phoenix Nights as fuck. And again, it was like we got blacklisted because people were complaining and stuff. So I still had that. I think I had that in mind when I wanted to form my own bands, like Wildhearts and stuff. Have an annoying element.
Yeah, I love that. So just before leaving the Choir Boys, you saw CJ perform with the Tattooed Love Boys. Was it Ray Zell you was with that night?
I think I was out the Choir Boys then. I don't think I was out the Choir Boys long, actually, because CJ was the first person that I saw and went, him, that one.
What was it about him?
I don't know. No idea. He was probably better than the band he was in. That's pretty what it was. He was tall, he was skinny, and he was a good guitar player. And I was just like, okay, going to have to meet this fellow. And then it turned out that we liked the same bands growing up, and we had the same kind of things that we didn't want to do. Like, we both hated guitar solos, both loved like heavy riffs, and both liked punk and melodic stuff, like even like Descendants and things like that.
This is the guy I've been wanting to meet who I couldn't find when I was up in South Shields, that kind of thing.
CJ would have been ran out of South Sheilds with that hair. Anyone out there doesn't know, just there's a band called Tattooed Love Boys, wasn't it? And just have a look at the cover, just for CJ's mental hair. But he was the thing that I liked most about him, he didn't give a shit, He was out there giving not a shit. And I just thought, that fella's interesting.
I love that. What do you think you'd have said if someone had told you that you guys would still be performing together over 30 years later?
It was never part of the plan, It was like, if someone tells you, you're going to be kidnapped by aliens, you'd be like, yeah, whatever, jog on. There was nothing about us that was a long-term thing. You just, every year would roll by and we hadn't died or broke up yet. Actually, we broke up a few times. But I don't know. I think because we didn't have a long-term plan, that probably made it a little bit more interesting at the time.
You're not like, we've only got this long. It just kind of just kept rolling on and on and on. And
well, yeah, we were too busy fighting with the record company. And when you're young, all you want is a record deal. You don't know about, all I want is a good record deal. No, it was never about that. I just want a record deal to make records.
Careful what you wish for.
And that was the dream. Yeah. But again, I think because we fought with the record company who was trying to make the band a bit more stylized and a bit less rough around the edges, which was our favourite bit about the band, was that it was rough around the edges. We never agreed on any position right until they got rid of us, taking about, I think it was $1.5 million worth of debt or something. I remember talking to the A&R man in America saying, why are you not going to fucking release our album in America? And it's too punk, he said. What happens if punk's the next big thing? Oh, Ginger, punk will never be the next big thing in America. It was about 6 months before, like, Green Day, Offspring, fucking Maverick Records, Bad Religion, Rancid. We were at the perfectly wrong place at the right time.
Unreal, man, unreal. Dude, thanks ever so much for chatting to us. I mean, I could rattle on about horror stuff, but we could go on for days.
We'll have to do a part 2. See if it's better than the original. But this has been great. Thank you. Thank you very much. This has been fun.
Thanks so much to Ginger Wildheart for checking in with me and sharing such fun stories on the Straight to Video podcast. Now, I would have never expected him to have got the gig in the Choir Boys simply by wanting to go and see a Guns N' Roses Faster Pussycat show and talked his way into the opening band. Absolute genius. As mentioned, drop by thewildhearts.com for all the information about their upcoming live streamed event on April 17th, and also pick up some of their amazing merchandise which they have available, or you can follow Ginger on Twitter at Ginger Wildheart. For earlier episodes of the Straight to Video podcast, please visit stvpod.com, where you can listen to almost 70 episodes for free, along with straight to video music and videos. And I also have a brand new STV logo shirt for sale as well. So thanks in advance for dropping by and checking all that out. That's stvpod.com. Can't wait to share the next few interviews I've got lined up and in the bag. There's some great ones on the way, so don't forget, new episodes drop every Tuesday and Friday. So please like, follow and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks so much for the ongoing great support. I really do appreciate it, and I look forward to speaking to you all again real soon.